The mansion on Oakwood Drive stood as a monument to success: 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, a 3-car garage housing vehicles worth more than most people's homes. From the outside, it represented the American dream achieved through hard work and determination. Inside those walls, however, Dr. Zora Donovan was crafting nightmares. Patient 457 presents with mild chest pain and shortness of breath, Isaiah dictated into his recorder, reviewing the file of Martin Greenfield, a 62-year-old investment banker. Preliminary tests show minimal arterial blockage, approximately 30%. He paused, then continued with a slight adjustment. Recommend immediate surgical intervention for severe coronary artery disease, 85% blockage in the left anterior descending artery. With those words, Zora Donovan sentenced another healthy man to unnecessary open-heart surgery and added another $175,000 to his already substantial wealth. What Isaiah didn't know was that his daughter Zora had been quietly investigating her father's suspicious surgical record for months. As a pre-med student with access to his files, she had noticed disturbing patterns. Too many wealthy patients. Too many surgeries. Too many miraculous recoveries from conditions that should have been debilitating. When Zora confronted her father with evidence of his systematic fraud, she became the one thing Zora Donovan couldn't control, a threat to the empire he had built on suffering and lies. 3 weeks later, Zora Donovan disappeared without a trace. Welcome to Silent Crime Witness, where we bring you the darkest true crime stories that shake communities to their core. If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button and comment your location below. Your support helps us continue sharing these important stories that might otherwise remain untold. The investigation into Zora Donovan's disappearance began like many others with the boyfriend. Tyler Washington, a graduate journalism student with a promising future, found himself thrust into a nightmare when his girlfriend vanished from her Cambridge apartment just weeks before her Harvard graduation. "We had dinner that night at Marcella's," Tyler told detectives, his voice hollow with shock. "We argued about summer plans. I wanted her to come to Chicago for my fellowship. She said she needed to stay in Boston for a research position. We left things unresolved around 10 p.m. Cell phone records confirmed Tyler's alibi, placing him across town when Zora disappeared. Security footage showed him entering his apartment building at 10:30 p.m. and not leaving until morning. Yet in the court of public opinion, and especially in Zora Donovan's mind, Tyler remained the prime suspect. He was controlling, Isaiah told reporters, his voice breaking with what appeared to be genuine anguish. Always trying to pull Zora away from her dreams, from her family. "We never trusted him." The press conference where the Donovans pleaded for their daughter's return became national news. Standing before a forest of microphones, Vanessa Donovan, a prominent civil rights attorney, spoke with the measured precision of someone accustomed to high-stakes situations. "Our daughter is everything to us," she said, elegant even in her grief. "Zora is brilliant, kind, and has dedicated her life to helping others. Someone knows something. Please, help us bring our baby home." Isaiah stood beside his wife, offering a $250,000 reward for information. "I have spent my life saving others," he said, his voice catching. "Now I'm asking you to help save my child." The image was powerful. Successful Black professionals united in tragedy, fighting against the statistics that said their daughter's disappearance might go unsolved. Donations poured in. Volunteers searched wooded areas around Cambridge. Zora's face appeared on billboards and news segments nationwide. But as weeks stretched into months with no leads, the investigation cooled. Police continued to monitor Tyler, but without evidence linking him to Zora's disappearance, they couldn't make an arrest. The media gradually lost interest, moving on to fresher tragedies. Even the volunteer searches dwindled, until only Tyler and a handful of Zora's closest friends continued looking. "She wouldn't just leave," Tyler insisted to anyone who would listen. "Something happened to her. Someone took her." What Tyler couldn't know was how right he was and how wrong. 2 years passed. The Donovans established a scholarship in Zora's name at Harvard Medical School. Vanessa threw herself into her legal practice, taking on high-profile police brutality cases that kept her in the national spotlight. Isaiah continued building his cardiac empire at Westlake Memorial, his reputation growing as he performed increasingly complex surgeries on increasingly wealthy patients. Life moved on. Zora Donovan became another tragic statistic, another beautiful young black woman whose fate remained unknown, until Marcus Reed stumbled upon a story that seemed, at first, completely unrelated. Marcus was 26, a staff writer for the Boston Sentinel with ambitions far beyond local news. He'd been assigned to cover a medical malpractice lawsuit against Westlake Memorial Hospital, a routine story about a patient claiming complications from surgery. But as Marcus dug deeper, he noticed a pattern of similar cases that had been quietly settled out of court, all involving cardiac patients under Dr. Zora Donovan's care. Most journalists would have written the obvious story. Renowned surgeon faces occasional complications, hospital settles to avoid publicity. But Marcus had been taught to look beyond the obvious, to question the accepted narrative. And something about these cases felt wrong. The plaintiffs weren't claiming complications from necessary surgeries. They were claiming the surgeries themselves had been unnecessary, performed on patients with minimal cardiac issues that could have been treated with medication or lifestyle changes. Marcus began tracking down former patients, building a database of procedures, outcomes, and settlements. Most refused to speak on record, bound by confidentiality agreements. But one name kept appearing in his research: Zora Donovan, who had apparently been conducting similar research before her disappearance. The connection hit Marcus like a physical blow. Could Zora's disappearance be linked to whatever was happening at Westlake Memorial? Had she discovered something about her father's practice that put her in danger? Marcus needed an ally, someone who knew Zora well enough to help him understand what she might have uncovered. His search led him to Tyler Washington, now working as an investigative journalist in Chicago, still haunted by the girlfriend he couldn't save. Their first meeting was tense. Tyler had been burned by journalists before, reporters who seemed sympathetic but ultimately portrayed him as the obsessed boyfriend who couldn't accept that Zora had simply run away from the pressure of her perfect life. "Why should I trust you?" Tyler asked, studying Marcus across the table of a Chicago coffee shop. "What makes you different from every other reporter looking for a sensational story?" Marcus slid a folder across the table. "Because I found these," he said quietly. "And I think they might explain what happened to Zora." The folder contained medical records, statistical analyses, and financial documents, all pointing to a pattern of unnecessary cardiac surgeries at Westlake Memorial, all performed by Dr. Zora Donovan. All on wealthy patients with excellent insurance or the ability to pay cash. Tyler's hands trembled as he reviewed the documents. "This is exactly what Zora was working on," he whispered. "She called me the night before she disappeared, said she had proof her father was deliberately misdiagnosing patients to perform unnecessary surgeries." "Did she say what kind of proof?" Marcus asked. Tyler shook his head. "She was being careful. Said she didn't want to put me in danger by telling me too much. I thought she was being paranoid." His voice broke. "I should have listened. Should have gone to her apartment that night instead of letting her face this alone." "It's not your fault," Marcus said. "But I think you're right. Zora discovered something that made her dangerous to her father. The question is, what happened to her?" The two men formed an unlikely alliance, the boyfriend who had never stopped searching and the journalist who had stumbled upon a conspiracy. Together, they began piecing together the events leading up to Zora's disappearance, starting with her final months at Harvard. According to her friends, Zora had become increasingly withdrawn that spring semester. She'd spend hours in the medical library researching topics unrelated to her classes. She'd made several trips to Boston, visiting Westlake Memorial under the guise of preparing for her summer research position. She was different those last few weeks, her roommate told them. Jumpy, paranoid about her laptop, never left it unlocked. And she kept talking about her father, asking weird questions about whether I thought someone could be a good doctor but a bad person. Tyler remembered similar conversations. She idolized her father her whole life, he explained to Marcus. He was her hero, her reason for going into medicine. Whatever she discovered must have devastated her. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Westlake Memorial's IT department. Marcus had cultivated a contact there, a systems administrator named Darius who had his own reasons to distrust hospital administration. You were right about those patient records being altered, Darius told Marcus during a clandestine meeting in a parking garage. But it goes deeper than that. Someone accessed the system 2 years ago, right around when that Donovan girl disappeared, and deleted a bunch of files from the cardiac care database. Can you recover them? Marcus asked. Darius handed him a flash drive. Already did. The system keeps backups that even administrators don't know about. It's mostly technical stuff, surgical notes, diagnostic images, but there's something weird in there. Patient files with 2 different diagnostic reports, the original and an altered version. The flash drive contained exactly what they needed, evidence that Dr. Zora Donovan had systematically falsified patient diagnoses to justify unnecessary surgeries. Comparison of the original diagnostic images with the reported results showed healthy patients being diagnosed with life-threatening conditions. "This is it," Tyler said, his voice tight with emotion. "This is what Zora found. Proof that her father was deliberately cutting open healthy people for profit." But the files didn't explain what had happened to Zora. For that, they needed to dig deeper into the days immediately surrounding her disappearance. Marcus used his press credentials to access Harvard's security records, reviewing footage from cameras around Zora's apartment building. The official investigation had focused on the main entrances where Zora was seen entering but never leaving. But Marcus requested footage from all cameras, including those covering service areas and adjacent buildings. After hours of review, they found it, a service entrance to Zora's building covered by a camera from the neighboring property. At 2:17 a.m. on April 28th, a figure in scrubs and a surgical mask, impossible to identify, exited the building, pulling a large rolling suitcase. "That's how they got her out," Marcus said, his voice hushed. But was she alive or dead? The question haunted them as they continued their investigation. The surgical disguise suggested medical involvement, pointing directly at Zora Donovan. But would a father murder his own daughter to protect his reputation and fortune? Tyler believed Zora was still alive. Isaiah loved her in his own way, he insisted. Controlling, manipulative love, but love nonetheless. "I don't think he could kill her." "Then where is she?" Marcus countered. "It's been 2 years. If she's alive, why hasn't she contacted anyone?" The answer came from another unexpected source. While reviewing Zora Donovan's financial records, obtained through methods of questionable legality, Marcus discovered regular payments to a psychiatric facility in Arizona called Desert Pines Wellness Center. $75,000 every month, Marcus noted. Starting exactly 1 month after Zora disappeared. Desert Pines specialized in long-term care for patients with severe mental illness, particularly those from wealthy families seeking discretion. Its remote location and strict privacy policies made it perfect for hiding someone who needed to disappear. "We need to get in there," Tyler said immediately. "Impossible," Marcus replied. "These places are fortresses. We'd need a court order, and no judge will grant that based on what we have." But Tyler was already formulating a plan. "We don't need to break in. We just need to confirm if Zora is there." He paused. "And I think I know how." Tyler's plan was simple but risky. Using Marcus's press credentials, they would visit Desert Pines under the pretense of writing an article about innovative psychiatric care facilities. During the tour, they would try to glimpse patient areas, looking for any sign of Zora. "It's thin," Marcus warned. "Even if she's there, we might not see her. And if we're caught snooping, we could face criminal charges." "Do you have a better idea?" Tyler challenged. Marcus didn't. And so, a week later, they found themselves driving through the Arizona desert toward a sprawling complex of low, adobe-style buildings surrounded by high walls. Desert Pines lived up to its reputation for security. Their press credentials were thoroughly vetted. They were required to surrender phones and cameras. The tour was limited to administrative areas and a few carefully selected therapeutic spaces, all devoid of patients. "Our clients value their privacy above all else," explained Dr. Eleanor Winters, the facility director. "Many come from prominent families or are public figures themselves. Confidentiality is our highest priority." The tour revealed nothing useful until, returning to the administration building, they passed a bulletin board displaying artwork created by patients as part of their therapy. Most were abstract or landscape paintings, but one caught Tyler's eye. A detailed sketch of Harvard Yard, rendered with the precision of someone intimately familiar with the space. "Who drew that?" Tyler asked casually, pointing to the sketch. Dr. Winters glanced at it. "One of our longer-term residents. Quite talented." "It looks exactly like Harvard University," Tyler pressed. "Is the artist a graduate?" Dr. Winters' expression cooled slightly. "I couldn't say. Patient backgrounds are confidential. It wasn't much, but it was something, a potential connection to Zora." As they left Desert Pines, Tyler was convinced she was there, held against her will under the guise of psychiatric treatment. "We need to get her out," he said as they drove back toward Phoenix. "Even if she is there, we can't just break her out," Marcus reasoned. "We need legal grounds. Proof that she's being held involuntarily." "Then we get proof," Tyler said simply. "We find evidence that Zora Donovan committed fraud, connect it to Zora's disappearance, and force a formal investigation of Desert Pines." Back in Boston, they focused on building an airtight case against Zora Donovan. The medical records from Darius provided evidence of fraud, but they needed more, something that directly linked Zora to Zora's disappearance. Marcus suggested approaching Vanessa Donovan. "She's a civil rights attorney. If she knew what her husband was doing to patients and to their daughter, she might help us." Tyler was skeptical. "She stood by him at every press conference, every interview. Either she's complicit or she's completely in the dark." "Only one way to find out," Marcus said. Arranging a meeting with Vanessa Donovan proved surprisingly easy. Her assistant scheduled a consultation after Marcus claimed to have information about a potential civil rights violation involving medical care. Vanessa's office reflected her success, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, walls adorned with photographs of her with Supreme Court justices and civil rights icons. She greeted Marcus with professional courtesy, her expression revealing nothing when he mentioned he was a journalist. "I don't typically give interviews without prior arrangement," she said coolly. "My assistant should have informed you of that." "This isn't for an article," Marcus replied. "It's about your daughter." Vanessa's composure slipped momentarily before she regained control. "My daughter's disappearance is a police matter. If you have information, you should contact the detective handling her case." "What if the police are looking in the wrong direction?" Marcus asked. "What if Zora disappeared because she discovered something about her father's medical practice?" Vanessa's expression hardened. "I don't know what you're implying, but my husband is one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the country. He saved countless lives and endangered others through unnecessary surgeries," Marcus countered, sliding a folder across her desk. "These are copies of patient records showing Dr. Donovan systematically falsified diagnoses to justify profitable procedures." Vanessa didn't touch the folder. "Those records would be confidential. Obtaining them would be illegal." "So would kidnapping your daughter and hiding her in a psychiatric facility in Arizona," Marcus replied evenly. For a moment, the office was silent. Then Vanessa spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "What did you say?" "Desert Pines Wellness Center," Marcus said. "Your husband has been paying them $75,000 monthly since shortly after Zora disappeared. We believe she's being held there, possibly against her will." Vanessa's hand trembled slightly as she finally reached for the folder. "These are serious accusations. Life-destroying accusations. You understand that?" "I do," Marcus acknowledged. "That's why I came to you first instead of publishing what we found. Zora deserves justice, and I think you want that too." Vanessa opened the folder, reviewing its contents with the practiced eye of an attorney accustomed to evaluating evidence. Her expression remained neutral, but Marcus noticed the slight tightening around her eyes, the almost imperceptible quickening of her breath. "Where did you get these?" she asked finally. "I can't reveal my sources," Marcus replied. "But everything in that folder can be verified independently." Vanessa closed the folder and looked directly at Marcus. "You said we? Who else is involved in this investigation?" "Tyler Washington." Vanessa's expression darkened. "Zora's boyfriend? The primary suspect in her disappearance?" "I suspect your husband seemed particularly eager to blame, despite solid alibi evidence," Marcus pointed out. "Tyler never stopped looking for Zora. He's the one who connected the dots between her research into your husband's practice and her disappearance." Vanessa was silent for a long moment, seemingly weighing her options. Finally, she spoke. "I need time to verify this information. And I stress if what you're saying has merit, I'll contact you." "Time isn't something Zora has in abundance," Marcus pressed. 2 years in a psychiatric facility, potentially medicated against her will. "I said I need time," Vanessa interrupted sharply. 24 hours. That's all I'm asking." Marcus reluctantly agreed, leaving his contact information before departing. Outside Vanessa's office building, Tyler was waiting anxiously. "Well," he demanded. "Did she know?" "I'm not sure," Marcus admitted. "She seemed genuinely shocked about Desert Pines, but she's also an experienced attorney who knows how to control her reactions. She asked for 24 hours to verify our information. Or 24 hours to warn her husband and destroy evidence," Tyler countered. "Possibly," Marcus conceded. "But she's also Zora's mother. If there's even a chance she'll help us, we have to take it." The 24 hours passed with excruciating slowness. Marcus and Tyler continued building their case, organizing evidence, and preparing for the possibility that Vanessa would choose her husband over her daughter. When Marcus's phone finally rang, the number was blocked. "Meet me at the public garden in 1 hour," Vanessa said without preamble. "Come alone." She hung up before he could respond. "It's a trap," Tyler insisted when Marcus told him about the call. "Isaiah probably knows everything now. He could be planning to silence you too. Or Vanessa wants to help but needs to be careful," Marcus countered. "Either way, I'm going. But I'll take precautions." Those precautions included Tyler positioning himself nearby, ready to intervene if necessary, and a colleague at the Boston Sentinel holding a sealed envelope containing all their evidence, with instructions to publish if Marcus didn't check in by a specified time. The public garden was busy with tourists and locals enjoying the spring afternoon. Marcus spotted Vanessa sitting on a bench near the duck pond, sunglasses hiding her eyes, a scarf partially obscuring her face. He approached cautiously, scanning the area for any sign of threat. "Thank you for coming," Vanessa said as he sat beside her. "And for coming alone." "Tyler's nearby," Marcus admitted. "Insurance." Vanessa nodded, unsurprised. "Smart. Trust is in short supply right now." She paused, removing her sunglasses to reveal reddened eyes. "I verified your information. All of it." "You knew about the fraudulent surgeries?" Marcus asked. "No," Vanessa said firmly. "Never. I knew Isaiah was ambitious, driven, sometimes ruthlessly so, but deliberately endangering patients." She shook her head. "I would have reported him myself." "And Zora? Desert Pines?" Vanessa's composure cracked slightly. "I called Desert Pines this morning, claiming to be conducting an insurance audit. They confirmed they have a patient admitted by Isaiah 2 years ago, a young woman diagnosed with delusional disorder and paranoid schizophrenia." "Zora," Marcus breathed. "They wouldn't confirm the name, but the admission date matches Zora's disappearance," Vanessa continued. "I accessed our joint accounts and found the payments you mentioned, carefully disguised as charitable donations." "What about the night she disappeared?" Marcus pressed. "Was Isaiah in Boston?" "Officially, no. He was presenting at a conference in Chicago." Vanessa's voice hardened. "But I checked his private jet's flight records. There's an unscheduled round trip to Boston that night, returning to Chicago by morning." The pieces were falling into place. Isaiah had flown to Boston after Zora threatened to expose him, somehow subdued her, likely with medication, given his medical background, and transported her to Desert Pines, where she had been held ever since under false psychiatric diagnoses. "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. "Why not go directly to the police?" "Because Isaiah has connections everywhere, including law enforcement," Vanessa replied. "If he gets wind of an investigation before we secure Zora's release, he could move her or worse." She paused. "And because I need your help. You and Tyler have been investigating this for months. You understand the case better than anyone. What are you proposing?" "A coordinated effort," Vanessa said. "I'll file emergency petitions in both Massachusetts and Arizona courts tomorrow morning, seeking conservatorship of Zora and demanding her immediate release from Desert Pines. Simultaneously, I'll submit evidence of Isaiah's medical fraud to the state medical board and federal prosecutors." "And us?" Marcus asked. "You publish your story the moment the legal filings are complete," Vanessa said. "Create so much public attention that Isaiah can't possibly make Zora disappear again." It was a solid plan, leveraging Vanessa's legal expertise and Marcus's media platform to create maximum pressure from multiple directions. But Tyler, when informed, identified a critical flaw. "Isaiah will be notified of the legal filings before they're even processed," he pointed out. "Court records aren't sealed automatically. He'll have hours, maybe days, to react before any judge issues orders regarding Zora." "He's right," Marcus told Vanessa when they reconvened that evening. "We need someone on the ground in Arizona ready to act the moment the filings are submitted." "What are you suggesting?" Vanessa asked. "Breaking into Desert Pines? That's a federal offense." "Not breaking in," Tyler clarified. "Just being there, ready to prevent Zora from being moved if Isaiah tries to transfer her, and to document everything that happens." After hours of debate, they settled on a plan. Tyler and Marcus would fly to Arizona immediately, positioning themselves near Desert Pines. Vanessa would prepare the legal filings and coordinate with trusted contacts in law enforcement who could act quickly once the evidence was public. One more thing, Vanessa said before they parted. Isaiah is scheduled to perform surgery tomorrow afternoon, a valve replacement on a state senator. He'll be in the operating room for at least 4 hours, unable to communicate with anyone. That's our window. The next 24 hours unfolded with the precision of a military operation. Tyler and Marcus established surveillance of Desert Pines from a rented car, documenting everyone entering and leaving. Vanessa worked through the night with her legal team, preparing court filings in multiple jurisdictions. At exactly 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. in Arizona, Vanessa submitted her petitions electronically to courts in both states. Simultaneously, she delivered evidence of Isaiah's medical fraud to the Massachusetts Medical Board, the FBI, and the Department of Health and Human Services. At 1:05 p.m., Marcus's expose went live on the Boston Sentinel's website. Renowned surgeon accused of fraud and kidnapping, Dr. Zora Donovan allegedly hid daughter in psychiatric facility after she discovered his scheme. The story spread like wildfire. Within minutes, it was being picked up by national news outlets. Within an hour, reporters were gathering outside Westlake Memorial Hospital, where Zora Donovan was in the middle of operating on a prominent state senator. At Desert Pines, the effect was immediate. Marcus and Tyler observed increased security at the entrance and what appeared to be an emergency meeting of administrative staff. By noon local time, police vehicles had arrived, not local officers, but federal agents responding to Vanessa's allegations of fraud and unlawful imprisonment. "It's working," Marcus told Vanessa by phone. "FBI is on site. They're going in." What happened next would later be pieced together from multiple accounts. Federal agents, armed with emergency court orders, entered Desert Pines and demanded access to the patient registered under Zora Donovan's care. Initially, facility administrators resisted, citing patient confidentiality laws. But faced with federal warrants and the possibility of being charged as accomplices, they eventually relented. Zora Donovan was found in a private suite in the facility's most secure wing. According to agents on the scene, she was heavily medicated but conscious, able to confirm her identity and express her desire to leave. A facility physician later testified that she had been maintained on a regimen of antipsychotic medications for delusional disorder characterized by paranoid beliefs about her father. Outside Desert Pines, Marcus and Tyler watched as a young woman was escorted to a waiting ambulance, her thin frame supported by paramedics. Though they couldn't see her face clearly from their position, Tyler was certain it was Zora. "That's her," he said, his voice breaking. "That's her walk, even now." The ambulance transported Zora to a Phoenix hospital for evaluation and treatment for the effects of long-term antipsychotic medication. Vanessa flew immediately to Arizona to be with her daughter, while federal agents moved to arrest Zora Donovan as soon as he emerged from surgery. But Isaiah had one final move. Alerted by a loyal nurse that federal agents were waiting outside the operating room, he claimed a surgical emergency requiring immediate attention, buying himself enough time to access a staff exit. By the time agents realized he had fled, Zora Donovan was gone, his private jet already filing a flight plan for a non-extradition country. The manhunt for Zora Donovan would continue for months, spanning multiple continents. His assets in the United States were frozen, his medical license revoked, his reputation destroyed. The fraud investigation expanded to include other physicians at Westlake Memorial, revealing a culture of profit over patient care that had flourished under Isaiah's leadership. For Zora, the road to recovery was long and difficult. 2 years of unnecessary medication had taken a physical and psychological toll. She suffered from tremors, cognitive difficulties, and the traumatic aftermath of betrayal by her own father. But she also displayed the resilience that had led her to investigate him in the first place. 6 months after her release from Desert Pines, Zora was strong enough to tell her story publicly. In a television interview watched by millions, she described discovering discrepancies in her father's patient records while preparing for her summer research position. "At first, I thought it was a mistake," she explained. "One patient whose diagnostic images didn't match the reported results. But then I found another and another. I started tracking the patterns which patients received unnecessary surgeries, how much those surgeries cost, where the money went. What did you do with this information? The interviewer asked. I confronted him, Zora said simply. I still believed there might be an explanation. He was my father, my hero. I couldn't imagine he would deliberately harm patients for money. How did he respond? Zora's expression darkened. He tried to convince me I was misinterpreting the data. When that didn't work, he suggested I was working too hard, that perhaps I needed a break from my studies. When I insisted I would report him to the medical board, he became someone I didn't recognize, cold, calculating, threatening. What happened the night you disappeared? I was in my apartment preparing the evidence I'd gathered to send to the state medical board, Zora recalled. Someone knocked on my door claiming to be maintenance, there to fix a reported leak. When I opened the door, my father was there with another man, a doctor, judging by how efficiently they injected me with something that knocked me out almost instantly. You recognized your father? Yes, Zora confirmed. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was his voice saying, I'm sorry, but I can't let you destroy everything I've built. Her next clear memory was waking at Desert Pines, disoriented and heavily medicated. When she tried to tell staff who she was and why she was there, her statements were documented as paranoid delusions and used to justify increasing her medication. The perfect prison, Zora described it. Any attempt to assert the truth was considered evidence of my mental illness. Any resistance to treatment was labeled noncompliance and resulted in forced medication. My father created a self-reinforcing system where I couldn't possibly prove my sanity. Zora Donovan was eventually located in Singapore, living under an assumed identity. The legal process to extradite him was complex and ongoing, complicated by diplomatic considerations and his considerable remaining financial resources. For Marcus Reed, the story represented a career-defining moment. His exposé won national journalism awards and led to a book deal. But more importantly, it had saved a young woman's life and brought a dangerous fraud to light. Tyler and Zora's reunion was private, away from cameras and reporters. What passed between them remained their own, but they emerged as partners in both life and purpose, establishing a foundation to help victims of medical fraud and advocate for stronger oversight of psychiatric facilities. Vanessa Donovan, her reputation initially tarnished by association with her husband, eventually rebuilt her career by becoming a fierce advocate for patients' rights and medical transparency. Though her relationship with Zora remained complicated by her failure to recognize what was happening, they were working toward reconciliation. As for Westlake Heights, the community that had once celebrated the Donovans as the embodiment of Black excellence was forced to confront uncomfortable truths about success, power, and the systems that enable corruption. The mansion on Oakwood Drive stood empty, a monument to ambition unchecked by ethics, to achievement hollow at its core. In the end, the story of Zora Donovan became not just a sensational true crime case but a cautionary tale about the dangers of unquestioned authority, the courage required to speak truth to power, and the resilience of those who refuse to be silenced, even when the person silencing them is the one they trusted most. The truth had been hiding in plain sight all along, obscured by prestige, power, and the collective willingness to believe in a success story too perfect to question. It had taken the determination of a daughter, the devotion of a boyfriend, and the curiosity of a journalist to bring that truth to light, reminding us all that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones we invite into our lives, the ones we believe can do no wrong. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Silent Crime Witness. Your support allows us to continue bringing these important stories to light, stories that might otherwise remain untold. Comment your location below and share your thoughts. Have you witnessed similar abuses of power in your community? What changes do you think are needed to prevent predators from hiding behind credentials and reputations? Remember, the first step toward prevention is awareness. By sharing these stories, we create a world where truth can triumph over power, where victims can find justice, and where even the most respected among us are held accountable for their actions. Until next time, stay vigilant and stay safe.